Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining us today with the Workday Customer Story session. Just some general quick announcements. You will remain on mute for the entire presentation. We'll be using the chat box to enter your questions. Please do that if you have any issues. We'll try to tackle them as quickly as we can. And then based on the availability of time on the top of the hour, if we do have some time left, we'll go to the Q&A box and I'll surface them to our customers accordingly. Otherwise, without further ado, I'll hand it over to our customers here. And Maria, why don't you take it over from here? Thank you so much.
So good morning, everyone. I'm Maria Zach. I am from Point Loma Nazarene University. I wear multiple hats at the institution. I am the chair of two academic units, one that holds math and computer science and another one that holds physics and engineering. I'm also the special assistant to the university's president for strategy. And we have a sort of interesting model at Point Loma about how we've been handling our deployment. And it means that we've had two project managers. I'm gonna let Corey Fling introduce himself. He's the other half of the team.
Hi, I'm Corey Fling. I'm the Chief Information Officer at Point Loma, and then, as Maria said, the other half of the project management team. So together, Maria and I have co-project managed our Workday deployment from 2014 and on.
I'm Ravi. I'm the CIO and Associate Provost from Wellesley College. I oversee library, technology, and the registrar's office. And I want to say hello to my friends from Workday and Alchemy.
So we thought we'd start today by just giving you a little bit of an idea of the profile of our two institutions. Point Loma Nazarene University is in San Diego. It is a predominantly a liberal arts university, but we do have graduate degrees and we also have some adult degree completion degrees. There are about 4,500 students. We have about 950 non-student employees. Between undergraduate and graduate programs, we have about 70 different degrees, and our previous system, which we were on for over 30 years, was Genzibar.
Wellesley College is a small residential liberal arts college for women, and we are in the outskirts of Boston. We are a single, campus with 2,400 undergraduates and about 1,100 faculty and staff. And we offer a lot of interdisciplinary majors, plus the regular core majors totaling about 50. And we were very happy to replace the Ellucian banner system after 25 plus years, and a multitude of other systems that have been replaced with the move to Workday.
So I wanted to talk a little bit about our Workday journey, what our journey looked like coming from our legacy system over to Workday. So we'll talk a little bit later about how we made that selection process. But once we did make that selection, which was in late 2014, I think over our Christmas holiday, we were signing papers from various parts of the world. And we started our project and implementation in 2015. And so we did a 9-month deployment, both for HCM payroll together, and then a separate 9-month deployment for finance, which had an overlap of some time for both deployments. So we went live with Workday HCM and payroll in January of 2016. And then 6 months later, we went live with Workday Finance in July of 2016 to follow our fiscal year. We took some time from there. A lot of things we tried to build in on HCM, taking into account that we were going to do student. So some of our academic foundation underlayment was done along with HCM, but we did another deployment of the full academic foundations for student, which is kind of laying all the foundation work for future student stuff with records and student finance and everything. So we did that. We went live with that in 2019. Followed by our big go live with most everything student in 2020. So that included curriculum, records, advising, student financials, really the core of everything related to our student information system went live in 2020 together. What we are continuing to do in a deployment phase is Workday Adaptive Planning. And so that allows for financial planning, kind of what if scenario planning, to fully utilize the data in the tool to make better business decisions. In addition, we're doing Workday Extend, which allows us to do some add-ons to Workday that aren't natively built into the system, and we're taking an approach of only extending Workday in areas that we know aren't core to what they will develop, and so won't overlap with future functionality. Finally, we're just now beginning our deployment of Workday Prism, which is Workday's data warehouse, big data platform. So we're going to utilize that for some student success, data warehousing functionality as well. We're taking a little bit of a pause right now, and we'll soon start our Workday financial aid implementation. We've long been a PowerFades customer, and we were waiting for some functionality that's since been released. But in the near future, we'll begin that financial aid deployment, and also the people experience and other Workday functionality that comes out on their biannual update. Okay. Wanted to talk a little bit about why we chose Workday. We were on our legacy system for over 40 years. So like Ravi said, at 25 years, they were ready to get rid of Ellucian. We were in a similar boat with our legacy system, Genzabar. Not just because it was old and they continued to develop, but there was some certain things in the system itself that just created barriers to the campus. So when we began our search for a new student system and ERP in 2014, we were looking for something that wouldn't just provide ERP business functionality, but would also provide student functionality. We saw a huge benefit in something that would provide both, so that we can have data together in a single repository. So we looked at the new product that our existing vendor was providing. We looked at Ellucian's product as well, and we looked at Workday. And after a thorough review and attending several conferences and bringing vendors on site and having a full campus engagement, it became clear that Workday was really the only one of those vendors that was at that time completely transforming the student model. Even though they were only embarking on the student efforts at that time, there wasn't really much to be shown, but we had confidence after looking at HCM and payroll and finance that what they had done to transform those areas in the ERP space, they would be able to replicate in the student information space as well, knowing that it would be a similar path. We wanted to switch to a system that was flexible to the changing needs in higher education. For us, that meant changing calendars, changing student base. You know, for us, we were embarking on some more non-traditional student populations that we hadn't before. And just easily adapting to program requirements or other changes in the academic space that were very difficult to make changes and required some customized code in our legacy system. Workday was also a mobile-first platform, and we were really wanting to identify a platform that could meet what students are expecting. You know, as you know, students are coming in with their Amazon experience, expecting to have data at their fingertips on their mobile phone wherever they want. Workday made that shift to mobile early on, and they have a framework for which they can pivot to whatever the then current technology and trends are. So as those modalities change, their technology will adapt to that as well. Reporting and analytics was something that was very difficult in our legacy system. If you're on a legacy system, you probably are in a similar boat as us where it's a heavy lift for IT or anybody that knows how to do SQL queries. And those are the people that are the report writers. Those are the people with immediate access to data. And so those that are more technically proficient can get answers to the data that they need or have to create reports for those that need to. So Workday provides a system where reporting is built in natively, and if the report you need isn't available, people that aren't as technically proficient could easily generate the report that's needed as well. And then finally, similar to reporting, there's less dependence on IT for functional areas. So we've turned the reins over primarily to functional areas, to the administrative leads in those areas, to perform configuration functions or settings changes as needed, whereas before that required somebody in IT, probably somebody in IT that knew how to program to make changes in those areas. So you know, IT is still involved, but that shift for HR, for payroll, for finance, and now for student has given them the functional areas the ability to utilize, configure, and change their system as needed.
All right, so let me talk a little bit about how we structured our deployment. This is, I think a fair amount of what I'm going to say is applicable to deploying any ERP. It was particularly useful because of the integrated nature of Workday. Point Loma as a university is highly relational, and a big piece of that is that we kind of do things in community. So you were seeing this played out in the fact that Corey and I have been co-project managers. We've also been co-executive sponsors, which means that the university cabinet has given us a lot of latitude to make decisions as we go along without asking permission each step of the way. And what that's done is it's connected the technical side of the house with the academic side of the house. I've been at the university 26 years now, and because of my work in strategy, I know a great deal about all of the details of the academic side of the house. So that commitment to integrating IT and institutional functionality and the experts in those functional areas has been with us through the entirety of the project. So when we built all of this, we had people from HR, we had people from finance, we had people from academics involved, and with the expectation that people would come to understand some piece at least of what was going on in areas that were outside of their responsibility. The power of Workday is that things are interconnected, but that also means that if you make a decision about configuration in HR, you want to be sure that that doesn't have an implication over in financials that you weren't worried, didn't realize was going to happen. That's had another really interesting virtue for us, and it's been a huge value, is that it's caused us to ask a lot of the why questions about our business processes, because now you've got multiple eyes looking at a business process saying, well, why did we do that? And one of the most excellent examples for me is that when we finally pulled it apart, we realized that if somebody needed to be reimbursed for an expense, 17 different individuals could have to touch a piece of paper. We deployed, as Corey said, HCM and finance first. That was really useful because it helped us to learn to think in a Workday way. The data structure for Workday is different because it's object-oriented, which gives it its power, but it also means you have to think differently. The other sort of big takeaway for us from deployment is test, 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 and more test. After the people who knew what was supposed to happen tested things, we then had people who didn't know what was supposed to happen, so end users, go ahead and do more testing. That testing was really valuable to us. We still keep a sandbox tenant that we do testing and playing whenever we're trying to diagnose something. And that testing really made our go lives go very smoothly. It was surprising to me because I've heard all the nightmares about ERP deployments and we didn't have them. So Shane, if you want to flip slides. All right, so just to give you a little bit of a view into the testing, one of the pieces of testing that we did was student registration. So, you know, in some sense, this was the end game that we had been building towards. We'd gotten the business process of HR and finance really running quite smoothly by 2016. Then we were doing all kinds of conversions and moving everything into Workday for our student systems. And if you just, any of you pause and think about for a minute the number of years of historic student records that you have, the number of times that the configuration of an academic major has changed in the history of your institution, if you ponder that for a minute, that begins to give you a feel for the depth of the data lift and the data conversion involved in all of this. We got to the point where we were ready to start testing what would happen if student registered. We did have a useful secret sauce that we didn't know until we got into the process, and that secret sauce was Girl Scout cookies. We stood outside of the cafeteria with boxes of Girl Scout cookies, and we had more than 400 students willing to test the system for us in exchange for a box of Girl Scout cookies. It was quite an experience, but it gave us 400 touches. It gave us a lot of great survey data from students. And the main takeaway was that students said, oh, That's actually pretty easy. We also had faculty do some testing for us, and we had some end users in the registrar's office in the student financial services area that had not spent a lot of time building the system do some additional testing for us. The beauty was we found that we'd gotten it mostly right. We had to make a few adjustments and configurations, but that's it. One of the bigger things that we realized we had to adjust actually was the training materials. I ended up, I did not write the original training materials, but I ended up putting my faculty hat on and going back and pulling them all apart and thinking about what I would do if I was trying to teach a student to use technology. Honestly, it was the faculty and staff that had more trouble with the skipped steps in the training materials than the students. But that created, that set of training materials then now exists in a knowledge-based location on our website where anybody can go back and find how-tos for things that they've forgotten how to do. All right, next slide.
All right, for student and faculty adoption of a new system. Well, you know, our first bullet here, it says how to go live in a pandemic. We were not expecting it, but that's how our plans aligned. It was to go live in the middle of a global pandemic. And so our initial plan prior to knowing this was coming was to set up a war room on campus, to go live, to have all our experts, both from our implementation partner Workday and our resident experts in a single room to answer all questions that came in from students, from faculty, from advisors and everything. And that's the reality was that's not how it turned out. Faculties are our primary advisors on campus for students with their academic path. And so we were concluding our training of the faculty population for advising just as the work from home orders were coming. So the work from home and teach from home orders were coming. So our advising started on the first day that classes were fully online. So as you can imagine, our faculty, their primary focus wasn't how can I advise students? It was how do I get my coursework online in a completely different format. So Workday became somewhat of a distraction, for lack of a better word. But you know, they went through the full advising process, meeting with every single student, really, as Maria said earlier, with very little issues. So despite the distraction, everything went amazingly well. There was no war room. There was nothing that we'd planned. Well, nothing like we had planned went like it did. But what we did, we had a lot of online resources. We had those available. We were going to make those available anyway, and those turned out to be rather valuable. When people had questions, we'd point them to those online resources. So things went smooth, not just for faculty advising. Like Maria said, students adopted this really well. We had done the mock registration, but that didn't mean that every student had seen it. But the registration process was rather intuitive. Any minor issues were caught and configuration changes were made along the way. Most often they had to do with records type data, so course or section data, course requisites, and the registrar's office was just able to make those changes and adapt as we went along. Just comparing the stats from previous year, it looked normal. There weren't any anomalies from the registration pattern, and students got registered with very little issues.
All right, so just a few things that we're working on for engaging students. So I am actually a mathematician by training, and a lot of my specialty has to do with building mathematical models. So we finally sort of gotten to the place where I'm getting to do some of the playing I wanted to do with analytics. We're using Workday Prism to develop a new student success model. So using academic, financial, and engagement data to see if we can create some early warning systems for students. So this is our sort of first analytics kind of project using Prism, which is the big data tool. We are also implementing advising tools having to do with keeping notes on students, building engagement plans, and coming soon should be integration of Workday appointments with actual calendars. We happen to be on Google at the university. But using a collection of tools to help us make contact with students and keep good track of how they're doing in a single framework, which is new for us because we've been playing with the multiple different tools to try to get these looks at students. So I'm really excited with some of the looks that are coming for us going forward. We're going to play some more with the mobile framework, and we're still learning the ins and outs of all the details of security, but the idea being able to give segmented access. So our public safety people need to know some things about students, but they don't need to know all. And as we wade further into this, we're working hard to refine that access. And that's been, for me, it's been kind of one of the most interesting learning experiences. Next slide.
All right, so what are our next steps? Obviously, with any go live, there's going to be some level of bugs with the way that we configured the system. So like HR, payroll, finance, everything, we're working through, we've worked through most of those bugs that we've identified. And so we're starting to look forward to what's next for Point Loma in terms of aligning with Workday. So already when we did our implementation, the number one goal was, let's not replicate what we have in our legacy system. Let's streamline the student and faculty experience. Let's think outside of the box. How can we make it better? Not how can we make it the same? And so we've done that already during implementation, but as Workday does their biannual releases, we're always looking to how we can take advantage of those functionalities and incorporate those in for an even better experience for both our students and our faculty. As I mentioned before, we're going to be implementing Workday Financial Aid, and so that implementation is going to be beginning soon as we shift our focus over to that. And then we're going to be implementing new tools as they're released. Notes and appointments are something that we can use for both our professional and faculty advisors with students, and so that'll give us the ability to have, I guess, for lack of a better word, a CRM light functionality to track notes and topics about our students and either make those visible to different administrative and student populations as needed, and also take appointments within Workday so that we can schedule those interactions with students as well. Maria touched on it already, that Prism is something that we'll be moving to as well. We're just now launching on that process. Maria mentioned student success. We're also looking to move our data warehouse into that system so that we can create dashboards within Workday for both our current data, but also data dating back to several years to our legacy system as well. Workday Adaptive and Planning module, we're concluding our implementation for financial planning and other planning for personnel within Adaptive as well. So that's giving us some flexibility to do some future planning, not just looking backwards. And then finally, the people experience, that's something new that Workday introduced in the most recent release, and that's kind of refining the user interface and providing some additional tools like knowledge base and interactions within Workday, as opposed to having to go out to third-party systems to do that. Finally, Workday is a tool that's continually updating. The benefit that we saw, and one of the big reasons we wanted to switch, was it's a cloud-based tool that we're not having to maintain the infrastructure for. And so every customer that's on Workday is on the same code base that we're on and gets the same updates at the same time we do. So when those updates come out twice a year, we're always looking to do regression testing, looking to do feature enhancements and review to see what we can incorporate in and take advantage of at Point Loma to make the system better for everybody. With that, I'm going to conclude the Point Loma side of the presentation and turn it over to Ravi to talk about Wellesley.
All right, so our path is very similar to what Corey and Maria explained, but we were a little earlier and proud to be earlier. So we finished our negotiations for entering into Workday in late 2016, January 2017. We did that in collaboration with Wellesley University in our neighborhood. We negotiated contract, etc., together, picked the same implementation partner, etc. And that was 2016. And then we had a 9-month implementation for HCM, payroll, and benefits. and we went live on 1/1/2017. And then 6 months later, we went live with financial management on the July 1st fiscal year start. HCM implementation went just fine. We did not have a lot of problems, but the way we did our rollout on July 1st with our academic department administrators who don't work during summer was a lesson learned, because they came back to a completely new system, on the first week of, classes starting, and a new financial system they needed to, learn. But we weathered through that, and, everything worked out in the end. And in the fall of 2017, we began the choice of an implementation partner for our Workday Student. And 2018 summer, we implemented, we started a slow rollout, just like others explained. So we did the curriculum management for first. So the department chairs developed the 2019-2020 curriculum fully in Workday for the first time. And that went remarkably well. Given how difficult the financial management rollout was, because when we did that, we were asking our faculty to do something that they had never done before, which is to do their own expense reports in Workday. Again, that didn't go well, that didn't sit well. We, talked to them repeatedly about the value of it, but at the back of it, we roll out curriculum management, which went flawless. It was a big, win for us. And then 2019, February, we had a soft go live with pretty much, the student self-service for updating their addresses, etc. We really did not want to open it up at that time when our seniors had just barely 4 months to graduate. Why introduce them to a new system? Etc. So we just slow roll out of self-service, and then we did not want the incoming class to have the word banner in their vocabulary. So they were onboarded in Workday, and they only knew Workday. So we matriculated the students in May, so they only knew Workday. And we use Slate. We continue to use Slate for admission, and we brought them over. And then we did the first billing for the fall in July. Student billing. And then the first years registered. So our continuing students register in April. That was the last registration in a banner. As I said, we didn't want to disrupt too many things. And then first years registered. That was a fantastic registration. 600 people registered, 29 seconds, it was all over. And we had one, I'm not kidding, we had set up a help desk-like environment for students to come if they experienced problem. We had one student come, and the problem was not related to technology. The problem was related to a problem technology can never solve. She really wanted to get into a very popular course, and she couldn't. But guess what? Workday has enormous amount of data that you can go to. So we drilled down and found out, this poor student was 3 seconds late, to grab that last seat. We could never do this before. There was no analytics, no data that you can look at this level of detail. So it was a huge success. And then in November, we did the registration for all classes. And our campus newspaper ran a survey, satisfaction survey among students without even consulting us. Some 80% of the students said this registration was far better than before. And again, the 4 or 5 days of registration, which is what my class here, went flawlessly well. For the first time, we were able to put in permission of instructor and prerequisites for select set of courses that all worked, really flawlessly. And then in 2020, obviously, the COVID-19 came, and we were able to make changes in Workday this unbelievably quick. In mid-March, we needed to change, to open up Workday for the first time in the history of the college, record midterm grades. Okay, so we quickly did the interim grade concept in Workday. We also needed to completely gut down our summer program, which has been already created in Workday, and redo it. We have 2 summer 7-week program that needed to change to 1. We did that quick. And then, during the month of May and June, we had to completely rethink our fall. Okay, our fall is going to be 2 7-week terms, not a 13-week semester. And we did, again, all of these reconfigurations in Workday very quickly and, with a lot of efficiencies. And then, I'll talk at the end about, the 2020 and beyond, is because it's very much like what, Corey and Maria talked about. So HR, much better insight into data, and everything is centralized. The fact that it's an easy to use system means self-service actually works very differently. You don't have to convince a lot of people to go and keep their data updated. They see the value of keeping the data updated. If they don't update, they don't get notified of emergencies. Okay, so they don't have to go hunting around as to exactly where to do these kinds of things. So it's very nicely centralized. And the feature set, that any one of the modules in Workday provides is coming very handy. And I in terms of the value proposition of something like Workday, I want to say, so like every school, we have an emergency group of senior leadership that meets on a regular basis. So during March, when we were scrambling to figure out which students should be sent home, which cannot afford to go home, therefore have to stay in the residence hall, there will be all sorts of questions about data, in this meeting. And my biggest success story is people were not looking at me for that. The couple of deans in the senior leadership had Workday open. They were answering all these questions, about students or staff, etc. And to me, that tells something about the value a tool like this is bringing. Think about a senior leadership with everybody open laptop, saying, oh, so many students are from this state, so many are from that state, that I don't have to do. Right? And we are also using this as an opportunity to use a feature in Workday called document storage, which stays within Workday. So like every employee who is authorized to come to campus have to sign a return to work agreement. We are producing that signed document as a PDF, and it's part of the employee record. That's secured in a way the right group of people have access to those documents. And that's an enormously beneficial thing in that single system, which says for the first time our HR, payroll, budget, the position budget kind of stuff, and finance are all seeing the value of a centralized system. Like we had to go through a furlough. So it's all centralized, and HR goes and marks the furlough. Finance can take a look at what the financial impact of furlough is going to be without having to ask somebody for a report. They have access to all the necessary report to be able to look at these things. Next slide, please. Financial management, again, the ease of use, for especially the finance office, is making a huge difference. And by asking people to do expense requests through the system, etc., we are now able to understand exactly where money is being spent in a way that we never had before. Expense reports were paper-based and were entered into Banner as a single line item, not broken down by line items. You had no clue as to where the money was being spent and whether the college can actually do some strategic sourcing, whether it is, working with a travel agent for most often travel space. We never had any of those ideas. Now we do, right? And the COVID crisis, again, okay, has helped us think about how do we track the COVID expenses easily so that we can, for compliance and reporting purposes, attach the correct expenses, okay, with the CARES Act funding we received, or things of that kind, and also to get a nice feel for, okay, how much are we spending on masks? How much are we spending on sanitizers? Okay, so on and so forth. Of course, the Workday as a tool provides easy ways to do it. Okay, none of this is going to be right if the end user doesn't tag them properly. That aside, okay, if things are easy, people will use them. Okay, and that's what is working out for us. And in terms of adaptive planning, and also, I'm sorry, I forgot to tell you that Workday has, okay, budget controls that we can put in place. In higher ed, there's always a reluctance, okay, to put tighter, budget controls, which won't allow you to spend more than what you have. But we are seriously thinking, whether we can do that in a softer way than a hard, okay, stop. The adaptive planning, we have been on it for almost 2 years, and we have actually used it for the annual operating budget planning. The nice thing about that is the adaptive planning can, okay, use the current year data from Workday in a way that previously we didn't have. It was a kludgy thing. Okay, so your forward-looking budget planning can easily, okay, the budget person can easily relate that to the year-to-date expenditures on the various cost centers, okay, on the finance side. So this whole unified, okay, way of approaching this, okay, is a uber powerful, okay, thing. And we are expanding our use of adaptive. We are looking at enrollment planning and such, okay, because again, now we have all of the data in one place. You can pull them, okay, into adaptive, okay, for enrollment type of planning. So as I already mentioned, registration has been a huge game changer for us, okay, that we can glean a lot about what the students are doing even prior to the registration. There are multiple ways to register, okay, in Workday. We promote the notion of saved schedules. That's almost like a plan for registration. Okay, saved schedule allows you to go look at the catalog of sections that are available, and then you can start adding them to your schedule. And you can create multiple schedules, okay, to decide in which order you're going to go. The nice thing about saved schedule is it actually tells you at the time you add a section whether you are actually qualified to take that section or not. Okay, so it will flag it. It won't stop you from adding it, because a lot of things can happen between the time you add and actually register, but it'll give you a flag. You don't have the prerequisite for this course, or you need a permission of whatever. There's a slew of things it does, okay, that helps the student think about having a nice, clean schedule, okay, to go click at the time of registration, so the return on investment is the highest. We, on the back end, have a way to pull these saved schedules, produce reports, and take a look at it. We are making them available we are going to be making them available to the academic department chairs, so they can take a look at demands. Of course, these are students, these are wish lists. You can't purely go by them, but they do provide a lot of data on which are the sections that are being added to saved schedules. So how can I think about maybe opening a new section? Okay, or in the current case, for example, we ask the students, are they going to come to campus or are they going to do remote? Okay, we have those answers. That combined with the saved schedule is driving the balance between on-campus sections being offered and the remote section that is going to be offered. And all these changes are taking place prior to the registration. So the bottom line is the amount of data at your disposal based on which you can actually make the registration experience better is just fantastic. Okay, and as I said earlier, we did not hear about technology issues. In the banner world, there'll always be my browser is spinning. Okay, what do I do? And that is why I didn't get the class I wanted. We never, had that problem. And, we also make sure there are enough resources, technology resources on the back end in Workday, to be able to handle these clicks, simultaneous clicks at the same time. And that, again, not going to repeat the data again, but it also finally, working with some of us, has some really flexible waitlist models. Okay, so holistically, the registration in itself, which is one of the biggest, pieces that affect the students and faculty, is maturing into something that's just beautiful. Next. Sean, you're going to tell me, Shane, you're going to tell me when my time is up, right?
You have about 3 minutes.
Okay. The next steps are, like everybody else, we want to take a look at, the cloud platform, because, as a strategy, we wanted to hide Banner from our users, so transition to Workday will be simpler. So we developed a whole bunch of PHP apps around Banner, which we knew are throwaways. So we are coming to that stage where we are slowly throwing them away and directing people to use the native functionality in Workday. But there are some things that are very specific to the way we conduct business that is unrealistic for us to expect Workday to make that available to everybody. So we think the cloud platform provides a way by which we can actually replace our PHP apps and provide the same user interface, to the end user. So we'll be seriously taking a look at it. The other big one is Prism. We have a very strong SQL Server-based data warehouse that's loved, by our community. It's called Wanda. So we need to tread that a little carefully because you don't want to take away a loved one very quick. So we need to work with Prism to make sure it can be equally loved, before we pull the rug under, what we have, today. One final thing, and then I'll shut up. All of the things that you saw here wouldn't have been possible if we didn't have the great staff that we had, and support from Workday, and great partnership with implementation partners. And I have to mention, Student was the toughest of all. So Alchemy was our partners for that. They did a phenomenal job to get us to where we are. All of these things need to come together for you to enjoy the fruits of the labor, like what we are doing now. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ravi, Maria, and Corey, for your time today. We only have a couple minutes left. I only saw a couple questions, which thank you so much, Maria and Corey were kind enough to respond to them. So with that, and due to the sake of timing, it looks like we're all right on the Q&A side. So thank you so much for joining us today, our audience members, and to our Workday customers. As usual, you did a great job, and thank you so much for providing the market an update on Workday Student.